Okay, we're live. Hi everyone, and this is it's like the fourth episode in 2 weeks. That will reduce down to one episode a week, mostly because I've started work. But welcome to Life After Islam, and today with us we have Rose. And before she introduces herself, I just want to talk a little more about what Life After Islam is, and I feel like I change the narrative every time, but it remains the same. Basically, it is me talking to ex-Muslims, activists or not, content creators or not, but basically just talking about their journey, finding common themes, and basically just putting the story out there. And I think that has always been my goal with Faithless Hijabi, amplifying people's voices, um, even if they decide to be anonymous. So we've had Little Devil on, we've had Sahra on, and we've Gada on, and today we have Rose on. So without delaying this even more, Rose, please go ahead and introduce yourself. And she has a YouTube channel that I've linked below. So give her a subscribe. I love her Why I Left Islam video. I know she's going to talk about it here, but her video was amazing. The images she used, but the story she conveyed and the honesty in it, that was really great. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead and take the show.
Thank you, Zara. Really, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for bringing me up on your platform, as well as sharing my story with everyone as well. Um, so, a bit more about myself. I am currently traveling the world. I love wildlife. I'm also a fitness enthusiast. I run a YouTube channel, as what Zara has mentioned. It's called Fatally Honest. So, go ahead and subscribe to it if you like the content. And I over there I cover various topics from governmental corruption in Thailand, sex culture in Europe, as well as women's rights in Philippines. So quite a wide array of topics. And recently I've released my YLF Islam video, as well as my story that it's a part of that, of course. But also in making the video, I felt that I also had to show, not just my story, but also include all the other people who have gone through this and what repercussions other people face in other countries where Islam and the government is essentially merged together.
So, I I know. So I have lived in Malaysia before.
Mm.
I was there for about 3.5 years, and Malaysia was a cultural shock to me because I guess you were born there and you've seen the religion, like you were born in Singapore, but you've seen the religious side of it,
Mhm.
and you've seen like people can be Western. Now, with me, I didn't know you could not wear a hijab. I didn't know you could be a Muslim and not wear a hijab.
Mm.
And that was, I guess, shocking to me. But I also realized that there were a lot of Malays who would wear a hijab and they would drink. They would go clubbing, they would change. And I was like, oh, okay, so you're living your life and doing this. And I was one of those who was like, I'm not going to drink. And I didn't drink. And if I went to a club, I always wore long sleeves. I just loved dancing and music. And even then, I wouldn't touch anyone. So I was always like that sheltered. But I want to know a little bit more about how you were raised in Singapore, because I know you were wearing a hijab until in your late teens or no, after
Like
20s, I guess.
20s, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
early 20s, I would say.
But you also
Uh,
look like you're 22, so
I know I have the Asian genes where I look young,
I was just gonna say you're like I was gonna say 18, and I'm like, but then you said early 20s, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I'm like
Um,
mid 20s now, so
oh, okay,
it's
so
yeah. But
yeah,
in that frame. So
yeah.
yes, so I'm born in Singapore and I have gone to Malaysia many times. It's just across the border. So it's I would say the culture of Islam, as in how it's practiced, it's quite similar for Singapore and in Malaysia. I could also say a bit for Indonesia, though Indonesia, I feel, depending on the region, is a bit more strict So, for example, Aceh, they have the Sharia law and stuff like that. Singapore is a secular country, so we don't have Islamic law put in place because we have all the different races, so we don't really want to have that put on everyone. Though we do have the Sharia law, as in terms of like marriages and stuff like that. So if you're a Muslim and if you want to get a divorce, you would still have to go through like the Islamic courts in Singapore. So they have that for the Muslim community there. Um, yeah, so they have like a Islamic body authority figure in Singapore. They have that. In Malaysia, this is quite interesting because I did talk to had another podcast with a Malaysian, and we were discussing about this. And he is Indian, not a Muslim. He's not a Malay, he's not a Muslim, he's just Indian, no religions attached. And he was talking, and we were talking about how the laws in Malaysia are created, right? So in Malaysia, it stated that it's that the so-called primary religion would be Islam. It doesn't state any other religions at all. So even though Malaysia does have a multicultural platform country, like they have a lot of Chinese Malaysians, they have Malay Malaysians, they have Indian Malaysians, and the rest. Majority of them are Malay Malaysians, and majority of them are Muslims. So in terms of that, they have a lot of rules that pertains to Islam. And if you want to do talk about Islam or go against the religion or talk against the religion, it's not advisable to do so in Malaysia. So that's from my understanding. And as for apostasy laws in Malaysia, they do have a law that's stated, and don't quote me on this, please fact check, guys. That's I usually like to tell people to fact check, So if I can remember correctly, they said that I don't know. I think they either have to go to jail or they have to do some sort of rehabilitation. I am not particularly sure about it. Maybe Zara can input that or provide some facts on that.
Mm, I don't really know about it, but what was the law again?
That if you do come out as
Oh,
an apostate,
I don't know much about
you
it
have
because
to.
I was still like, I'm still Muslim.
Mm,
I was in the process of like leaving my faith, slowly taking off my hijab,
mhm,
but I never really prayed, and at that point, I didn't even know you could leave. I always thought I would be, and this would probably make it harder for me to find a partner in the long term because that was my role, and that's how I thought that I would always be the modern liberal Muslim, and um, I would like, I would never find somebody like that because everybody, if they're a Muslim and if they're a good person, they have to be a good Muslim. So at that point, I'd never looked up apostasy laws. It was just a part of my life that I went like, this gave me a culture shock. This is part of my journey and I've left it behind. So I'm not sure about their laws and apostasy. Sorry, that was a long-winded way to tell you
no,
that.
it's okay. To give more background anyway. But in Singapore, if you are, essentially an apostate and you say, "Hey, I'm denouncing my religion," you can essentially do that. It's not against the law,
Mhm.
because it's secular. So that was, I would say, something that I felt grateful for actually being uh, born in Singapore instead of Malaysia or Indonesia. So you can see that laws play a huge part in people's lives, especially if you're wanting to denounce something that's actually personal, personal between you and the God that the religion states, right? So in Singapore, essentially, like Zara said, there are people who are Muslims, but they don't wear the hijab. Whereas in other countries, no, that like how can you do that? It's crazy, right? It's against the law. How could you do that? So in Singapore, there will be people who are Muslims and they don't wear the hijab, it's socially acceptable, I would say. Um, if but this depends on how religious the family is. So, for example, if you are coming from a family that their parents are quite religious, they practice their 5 daily prayers, they practice zakat, they practice fasting during Ramadan, they practice all the different nuances, then and also they practice wearing the hijab, then you're going to grow up in an environment where you are also expected to do so, or you are trained to do so. So when I was younger, I grew up in my parents are normal Muslims, where they practice all of this, the different um what's that called, the praying, the 5 pillars of Islam,
Mhm.
essentially. So for me, that was the normal. I grew up with that. Like, yeah, it's normal. It's something that's part of my life. Like, why would that be different, right? So uh, I grew up when I was like 6 or 7, even younger. We would wear in Malaysia you can find this, and in Singapore you can find this. I'm not sure in other countries, but it's like a slip-on headscarf, for children, so that they don't have to kind of like do the whole styling of the scarf. So there will be like training scarves, I would say. And as kids, it's easy. You just wear it and stuff like this. Um, and then growing up though in Singapore, what's different to Malaysia is that because if you are in public schools, then you will not be able to wear the hijab. It's not part of the uniform. It's not like Britain where you can, if I'm not wrong, in Britain there is an option to wear the scarf for the kids.
In Malaysia, um, depends what family you're from.
Yeah.
So if the family lets you wear it, then you wear it.
Hmm.
But otherwise, you could possibly wait. Like I've seen like teenagers or 12 or whatnot, they don't wear it. So I think it's very dependent on the family.
Hmm. Yeah, and so this is quite different. In Singapore, if you're in a public school, it's mandatory you don't wear any religious symbols, or headscarves, nothing like that. But if your family is religious and they have enough money, and they will more likely put you in a religious school, which means that on top of the normal daily school subjects that you have to do, the mandatory ones that you have to do for your GCO levels, you also have to study all of the different subjects in regards to Islam. So
So like an Islamic school. And was
yeah.
that every day or like on Saturdays? Because in Tanzania, we had it on Saturdays.
Mhm. So for me, I went to madrasa like every weekend. So
Mhm.
that's quite normal. But for the ones that I'm talking about, is an actual like religious school, like a total madrasa Monday to
Mhm.
Friday. And on top of so these kids, instead of having like 4 major subjects that they have to excel for the O levels, they on top of that they have like 4 more, which is in regards to the Islamic studies. So
Mhm.
essentially, they would have like 10 subjects that they have to excel on,
Mhm.
and usually they have to study all the time. Like, it's they don't really have that much of I would say social life in that sense,
Yeah.
for students like that. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had something very similar that I would go on the weekends, but it was also assessed
Mm.
so that I could pass. And I hated Arabic. I
Same.
didn't like writing it. I had to, and I didn't like writing it. I didn't like being forced to recite it because I was just so slow in reading it. I liked history better.
Hmm.
But that's where I used to, I guess, focus my energy in. So I know you mentioned about like going to madrasa. How old were you when you started, and how old were you when you finished? Like,
Mm.
how young were you, I guess?
I would say that we started at primary one, no, like 6 years old,
Mhm.
till I was, let me remember again, till I was 15 or 16.
Okay.
Yeah, till I
Yeah.
was 16. Because after that, we stopped it.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives you like a more in-depth
Yeah.
knowledge into the religion, other than what your parents would teach you.
Yeah.
So
And did you
uh,
also read the Quran only in Arabic?
yeah, so that
Okay.
was yeah, basically that's, so you go from Iqra. I don't know if you guys have that,
What?
like learning the different Arabic
Yeah.
letters and
Yeah.
alphabets. So for us, we call that Iqra, which is you have to
Mhm.
like go through the 1 to 6
Mhm.
books, and then after that you read the surahs, and then from there you will read the Quran.
Mhm.
And for me in madrasa, we had to learn fiqh, sirah.
Mhm.
What else? The Arabic language, of course. I really did not like that
Yeah.
because I honestly, if I can be truthful, I like usually copy my friends' work because I was just like, you know what, this is not something I
I would make my
want to
mom
learn.
write it. And it's also because you don't talk at home. So it's not a
Yeah.
language that you're benefiting or understanding at all. And
Hmm.
you're reading something essentially nobody can like you
Communicate or
can't
understand.
understand. You're nobody like nobody around you even understands it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But most
And it's,
people around you.
yeah, and for me, it's not like I'm interested in Arabic or I'm
Yeah.
interested in the like Arabic philosophy or literature. It's not something that I personally would even look at if I wasn't a part of the Muslim community, or the Islamic
Yeah.
community. Yeah,
Did
so
did you have Malays, your family or your friends who were um like did were they obsessed with Arabs or being Arab or being like an Arab fetish? Because I didn't really see that. Not like I saw some Singaporeans dressing up like Arabs, but I didn't really see that as much. But in Tanzania, there were some people who would change the style of what they wear, but
Mhm.
also other places were like, oh, we have to be Arab. Like they felt guilty for not being Arab.
So in Singapore, throughout the years that I've lived there, I did not see this much. It's quite a minority.
Hmm.
Usually it's quite extreme, I would say. So a lot of the Muslims that you will see, normally they would wear our traditional clothing, Malay
Hmm.
traditional clothing, especially during Eid, or during Ramadan. They would wear just their own traditional clothing.
Hmm.
But in terms of wearing like the turban, or wearing, to Arabize themselves,
Hmm.
I would say this is quite a minority.
Hmm.
However, from what I'm seeing and how it's kind of changing in recent years, I would say there's kind of an uptick on
Hmm.
people who are wanting to be Arab or Arabic, I would say.
Yeah.
And they would, instead of using our local language, or calling like each other like
Sayang. Is it sayang?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sayang is like, oh dear, oh my god, yeah. um so
It's
instead of like,
Habibi.
yeah, exactly, so they call it, oh habibi, and saying all of this stuff, and I'm just like, oh my god, like I'm just cringing on the inside. Why do you have to use that, like it's cool, but in a sense where, like, okay, it's kind of cool if you're like watching some Arabic movie and you're like, oh hey habibi, like being cute and stuff.
Mhm.
But if you're using it in terms of like putting in your daily language, and even though it's not, I would say, in your culture, then I feel that, why do you put the Arab culture as something above your own? You're
Yeah.
just um disintegrating your own culture, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, we could say the same thing about English as well. Like now when I think about it, that like things like mate or like what we say in Australia. So I'm wearing my Australian hoodie. Um, I said that a lot when I lived in Australia, but it was also like everybody around me, and my culture was basically based around the people. But I feel like people adopt things like, for me, accents, I my accent sounds American different. It just sounds very different. But
Is
for
it?
me with accents, yeah, I know. If for me with accents, I basically pick up when I listen to people and how I've realized they respond to me. So if I speak more Australian, people notice it very quickly. But if I speak American, they all understand me and I don't have to repeat it again. So I'm like, there we go. Like, I'm going to continue using this. Or sometimes I've just heard a lot of buzzwords and I just say it. But yeah, the Habibi thing was, we didn't have the language as much as we had the dressing intensity. Yeah. There are a lot of people like, I had personally never, I have never put more than one layer of makeup, but I have seen people put like five different layers of foundation to change their skin color and whatnot, and their eyes. Like you can tell the way the Arabs do their makeup. It's like their eyes are really heavy and whatnot. I'd never seen that in my life until like, well, I went to Dubai and I went to a salon and I was like, this is so much makeup. And I've seen people in Tanzania imitate that because I am pretty sure it was kind of like an Arab fetish. And for the longest time, I thought I was Arab because my dad's grandmother was from Oman, but I realized she was Indianish Oman, like Indianish Persian Oman. So I guess I just didn't know, but
Hmm.
I think part of me just wanted to have that connection as well.
Hmm. And yeah, it's you know, like the whole eyes, you know, they put a
Yeah,
lot of eyeliner. Yeah, yeah. I can imagine that.
yeah,
Yeah, in Malaysia and Singapore, not so much of the makeup. More about
yeah.
like wearing the they wear the
Is it
really
called a
long jubas.
sarong? What is it called? Is it the
For
sarong?
yeah, you can call that like for the men they would wear sarongs. You know, like
Okay.
especially if they're gonna go to like prayers, they'll just
Yeah.
put it on because it's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for women, you know, they wear like the telekong easy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a easy prayer garb that they can
Mm.
wear put on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would say that in Singapore you get a variety of different Muslims. So you get
Mhm.
those who are religious, those who I would say is, you know, like half and half in terms of their parents are religious, but they don't really enforce the rules of Islam onto
Mhm.
the kid. So the kid
Mhm.
can essentially do whatever they want, or as long as it's not something that their parents would disagree about.
Mhm.
And then you get uh, like people who don't particularly care about the religion. So the parents maybe they pray like, I don't know, twice a day or whatever. So it's not really something that's, you know, a part of their daily routine. You know, the religion is not part of their daily routine so much. And so we get that as well. And you get people who don't, you know, they are Muslim in name, but they don't practice. We have that as well. So depending on the different levels of I would say religiosity, I don't know how to say it, then if you are a child who wants to denounce the religion, then you're gonna get a varying, you know, degrees of I would say effects. I would
Yeah.
say, yeah. And
Yeah.
go on.
Um, I was going to ask, when you said different types of religious people, I had two questions. So one, what was your family like, and how, like you mentioned, you went to madrasa, but how did your family daily implement it, and how did they, I guess, address when you were dissenting? And the second one was, Gada and I had discussed this about Malaysia, being a Shia, and how you're restricted, and Malays would like raid any mosques that are Shia and even persecute you if you're an imam. So really curious to hear like was your family like, and how was your upbringing in that religiosity sense, and also like, the attitudes towards Shias as well.
Mhm. So for my family, we are Sunnis.
Hmm.
Majority of Asia usually is Sunnis, and Shia is the minority. And when I was younger, essentially my parents they do enforce the hijab. Whenever I would go out, I would wear it more when I was 13 years old or 12 years old. That would enforce it more then. But when I was like 6 or 7, if you went to the beach, I could, I was a child, so you can be topless, like it's not a problem. But once you hit like 10 years old, then they start to kind of pile on the amount of when you have to put it on and when you shouldn't take it off. So for example, I can remember that when I was 10 years old, and if I said, Mom, it's like hot, it's 30 degrees Celsius, 35 degrees Celsius outside, I'm like sweating, can I take it off? When I was 6, I would be able to. But when I was 10, she said no. So,
Mhm.
that's a difference. And then, you get used to it, then okay. And as for like shaking, I don't know if you call it, if you have the same like name for it, but when you salam people, like for example, if I want to greet my mom or my father, I would have to kind of like salam them, which means to take their hand and then do that. Maybe it's just a cultural thing,
Mhm.
but in Singapore and Malaysia, you have this. So there's like you have to kind of take care of who you are touching. So if it's my male cousins, I would not be able to touch them. You know, especially when I'm like 12 years old and stuff. So they would say, no, you can't touch him. It's not allowed. And so it's the same with my uncles. I don't do that with them.
I had a question. Like, how old were you when that started shifting?
More towards when I hit puberty. Yeah, usually
Okay.
it's usually when you hit puberty, and then the parents will enforce these sort of rules. But before that, they kind of like train you before in order to
Mhm.
kind of like settle that into you,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah, and so that it's not gonna be like a sudden poof.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned this to me, but you have siblings, right?
Yeah.
A brother. Do you think your brother was treated the same way as you were?
That I'm not so sure because I have two siblings,
Mhm.
an older sister and older brother. My sister is the eldest, and me and them are like 8 years apart. So I,
Mhm.
I do not really see like how it was like for them because at that time I was like still quite young to really notice anything. But if I could try to remember, um, in terms of prayers, he would still be told to, pray at Zuhur or Asar, whenever he's at home and whenever my parents are at home, they will tell him to pray. And he, of course, will do it. In terms of reading the Quran, I would say that me and my sister were
Mhm.
enforced on that more than my brother.
Mhm.
So we can definitely see the
Mhm.
different, I would say, attitudes towards
Mhm.
a woman and a man. So yeah, I think they were quite relaxed actually on him compared to
Okay.
us. Yeah,
And I guess, yeah, I mean, like I always try comparing people's stories because we have so much in common and then so much that is different as well. And we come from different parts of the world. We were raised very differently as well. Like in my case, see, I think I got more opportunities, not rights, but I got more opportunities than my brother, maybe because I was one that was pushing for it. But also, I was I also think that when I was young and I was growing up, I definitely realized how ashamed I was made to feel for my own body. Like me growing the boobs was just so uncomfortable, and I had to hide them from my dad because I was really skinny, and you wear like shirts that are tight when when you don't really care about your chest. You're just like a child. But then also like my attitudes towards my uncles are like, oh, go cover up, and I'm like, what am I wearing? It's just a shirt. Like I am. Like, what is happening? Um, and it was more so my dad did it a few times, but it was more so my mum that it was my dad. But they both did it. But I just feel like um, just feel like sometimes women and parents, like in terms of parents, women are a bit more like mothers are a bit more pressing on misogynistic issues, and they're like, no, you should cover up. You're meant to be feeling wrong about this. It's your fault. And women don't do this, and women don't do that, and that women are likely to blame. Was that the case in your family as well? Like the dynamics, your mum pushing it on you?
So for me, since I was already covering up anyway, it was I did not really get that as much. So, however, when I was younger, like 12 years old and onwards, I have to wear t-shirts and I have to wear long pants. I remember that, and I cannot wear tank tops. Honestly, I did not even own a tank top until I was like 15 years old when I actually went overseas and then I bought one. I was like, oh, look at me. But because, parents are usually the people
Mhm,
who have the money and then they will be buying
mhm,
you stuff, right? So yeah, that was when you said that, I can definitely remember that I think it's usually more of the
mhm,
training that they've already given me, so I kind of already accepted that and didn't really question it. But later on, when
mhm,
I was wearing like shorts, for example, right, from school, we would have physical exercises, and then after that, we would have our uniforms,
mhm,
and I would have to wear shorts. When I come back home, I'm supposed to change from that into long pants
mhm,
and into a t-shirt. So this is something that is, I can say that the difference of enforcement um, in the
mhm,
home. And when I was older, definitely when meeting
mhm,
like uncles, I have to cover up, or even cousins, I have to cover up. Of course, if it's a female cousin, no problem. But if it's a male cousin,
mhm,
an uncle, a grandfather, you have to cover up.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, like with the mahram as well.
Mm.
Um, but also like yeah, I think we covered that point. But what about in terms of how your parents or your family or your view on how Malays treated Shias?
Yeah.
Uh,
So interestingly enough, I really learned more about Shia as like a practice of Islam when I started to think about living. But before that, when I was younger, there are some mosques in Singapore that is practicing Shia um, doctrine of Islam,
mhm,
but whenever you pass by it, my mother didn't really talk about it. She just said, "Oh yeah, they're just a different like sect, and they practice it differently. Um, just like they're not doing anything wrong, but
mhm.
it's not something that you should talk."
So
Uh,
was there like a demonization of shirk in like they were like they're non-believers or anything? Was that the sentiment around it?
I feel like that's how when she said those words, this is how I felt.
Mhm,
Like she didn't say those words specifically, but I felt like, oh, maybe they're like practicing the wrong like Islam or something like that.
mhm,
But even in Malaysia, you see it and you're like, oh, okay, so this is something that you should not learn about, because you'll go astray. This is the words
mhm,
that they will use. You'll go astray if
mhm.
you talk to these people or if you read
What
up
about
about
what about non-Muslims? Was that the same attitude as well?
it.
Or was that specifically with Shias?
With specifically with Shias. Yeah.
Okay, because what we had with like us growing up, it was like that distance, and I talk about this in every video. That distance between these are Muslim values, and then these are other values that we don't agree with. Like,
Mm,
and that's why, like, I guess, which I found very different because I had no idea what homosexuality was until I went to Malaysia. And I saw a few gay people, but they were not outwardly gay because it's still criminalized in Malaysia. But I had never known what it was to be gay. And I was also 16 when I left. So because I was never around that, I did know quite a bit. And Malaysia opened up my world to it because I met people from different backgrounds. So, like, I guess, was it different because you were raised there and that was like normal, or you didn't talk about it, or you had a group of friends who were non-Muslims?
I think yeah, I think because of how Singapore is quite secular, there wasn't really like a segregation between
Hmm.
like, oh, this is Muslim values and don't believe in all these people. It's very bad. But in terms of that difference, I would say it's more of like the actions, the behaviors. So, for example, if you were to go clubbing, this is not like in my teenagehood, childhood, my time growing up with my family, clubbing is a no-no. Like you're not supposed to
Mm.
go to clubs at all. It's very bad. It's haram. They would tell me this. It's not a good place to be. And I'm like, okay, sure. And that is mostly the main factor. They don't want me to go clubbing. I'm like, okay, yeah. In terms of talking about non-Muslims, yeah, my parents did not really point out like, oh, these are all different things that are wrong. Like if they're
Hmm.
talking about like Chinese Singaporeans or Indian Singaporeans, they don't. Yeah, they don't really see it as something that's different.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's like I suppose different for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, growing up.
And so I guess just getting into like your journey of leaving. I know you said you were trying to explore who you are and what you wanted to do. So how did that all come about and how old were you and how I always feel like it's over a few months or years for some. And even now we're still exploring what our identity is, that it's not made up of just being an ex-Muslim or like, the ex-Muslim identity is different. It means different things to different people anyway. For me, it is supporting other ex-Muslims and standing in solidarity. But also, like, I've realized that I'm also a humanist, and at some point, I would like to be vegetarian, but I'm not going to like go into it right now. But I feel like I'm encompassing and exploring more of my identity outside of this is me, like this is me who is a Muslim, and that's it.
And yeah, I would say that when I was younger, because I grew up with a lot of non-Muslims anyway. In
Hmm.
school, it's secular. You have like a
Hmm.
range of races you can be friends with.
Yeah.
And I would say that I had a best friend. She is Filipino Indian mix, and her family, in terms of religion, I would say her family practices both Christianity as well as Hinduism. So that's like a mix, and I was like, oh, interesting. Like families can actually do this. It's not just one religion for each family. So for me, that was it. It wasn't like a main factor, but it was something that's subconscious that I'm like, taking notes about. So for me, growing up in school, I'm not thinking about religion much. It's more about the topics that we talk about, like are we really going to heaven, or are you really going to go to hell because you're not a Muslim? So I actually would have sort of conversations with my friends, um, mostly, well, usually with non-Muslim friends. So because I don't know, the topic never really came up with any of my Malay
Hmm.
Muslim friends. So with my non-Muslim friends, I will ask like this sort of questions and like see what their religion says about it. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, kind of thinking about it more and more. But at the time, I was more of like 14. So it's just something I'm like taking notes about.
Hmm.
But then in my heart, I'll be like, yeah, but Islam is the true religion. It's something that it's always been taught to me. So for me, it's quite natural to kind of like taking note, but also kind of like skeptical about their points of views. And then when I in when I was in Polytechnic, and I was 18, I started to think more about it, and I started to experiment more about whether or not I should be taking this in Muslim identity, and does this values that Islam promotes actually fit with what I who I believe, what I believe I'm morally inclined to, or does whatever actions that a lot of you know Muslim countries or Islamic countries, or the people in those countries, how do they act, and how does Islam portray itself, and why do these people act in this manner? So when I'm looking at all the discrepancies and the hypocrisy that's there in your face, I can't lie to myself anymore. I had to look more into it. So I learned a bit more about, this is how it's like for other people who are Shias. They pray differently. Okay, and then I looked at, for example, Abdullah Samir, his
Mhm.
videos, and that's, his dad was he grew up in a certain sect, and when he wanted to shift to a different one, and he told his dad, and his dad was cool with it. I'm like, oh, okay. So there's like a different way where people react to different situations, and as from what I learned, like his dad is quite open, so he's fine with that. So I'm like, okay, so you can be that sort of a Muslim, I would say. For me, and the sort of environment that I grew up with, they don't allow that. So instead of like shifting to maybe a different sect that was a bit more, let's say, liberal or more open, unfortunately it's not something that a lot of Muslims in Asia are open to, especially the older generation. So I felt that I had to leave after really looking deeply into what I want to do. So I would say that at 18, even though I had all of these thoughts, I felt that I needed to be more pious. So at that time in Polytechnic, in Singapore, you don't really have like
So,
specific places to pray.
uh-huh.
So I would actually like, pray at a stairwell. It's actually quite common in
Yeah.
Singapore. Hmm.
I was just going to ask that I think I had the same phase where I was like when I was like falling out and I'm like, oh no, it's my iman that's weak. That means I need to go full on. There's clearly something I'm missing. So I'm guessing a lot of people usually go through that. They're like, I usually get some tweets from Muslim women going like, "Oh, thank you. You've made me read more into Islam and I'm so closer to it." And I'm like, "Good." And I'm like, as long as you're happy doing what you want to. But I felt like that phase always happens. And there's always, after we leave, there's also the phase of anger that comes about because you're like, "What?" So I'm curious to hear your side.
Yeah, so for me, I when I really started to look into it, at the beginning I was like, it wasn't like to the point where I was like, okay, I want to leave Islam, and then I looked, and then I started to like go back towards it. It's more like I have like some doubts, so I went. I felt like, okay, I need to do something about this in certain ways. So how do I go about this feeling? How do I approach this feeling? So at first I prayed more. That's like a lot of what a lot of people would say, tell you, oh, you need to pray more, you just need to pray more. And but then I was like, okay, this is not really working out. So at the point of time, I had like classmates who just started to wear or tried they doing like a phase where they're trying to put on the hijab. So they will essentially go to class, and then we, be in class together. And then afterwards, we will actually go to like religious classes together. And it was quite interesting to actually do that, because I actually put in a lot of effort going to these classes because it was so far away from my home. And usually they would end around like 11 p.m. and by the time I reach home, it'll be 12 a.m. So, and my mom would actually allow that because it's for a religious thing. Why not? It's good. She's learning more information, more knowledge about Islam. And yeah, so I did that for like in 2014, and it went on until I eventually graduated from my polytechnic in 2015, and then after that, I I was like, okay, I stopped the religious classes because my friends weren't with me anymore, and just continued praying and stuff like this with at home with my parents. Usually after we pray, we had our evening prayers, Maghrib. My mom will bring us like me and my sister together, and then we would read the Quran. And then because she has khatam her, the reading of the Quran, and she will point out the mistakes that I'm making. Like, oh, look, no,
Right.
this is
My
longer,
my
this
mom
is longer.
my mom used to do that. She used to know the Quran in her head, like, every time, and I'm like, "You're embarrassing me." Um,
Yeah.
I get I guess when we talk about family at the end of this, that will kind of put into narrative why families tend to distance themselves from their ex-Muslim kids. But
Hmm.
sorry, go on. I'm really enjoying this because I
Yeah.
feel like there are parts of it that are so relatable, and we yeah, and like we I guess yeah, it's just interesting that we've had similar experiences in, like, the whole religious phase and how parents react to it,
Mhm.
and they're so proud of you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Exactly. So especially when you've I don't know, memorized like a new surah, and then they're like, "Oh, amazing, good for you!" Like they're
yeah.
really encouraging. Oh my god.
I feel like
Um,
they celebrated more of your Quran recitals than your graduation.
yeah, it is. And for my parents, yeah, so that's what my mom would do. She would like bring me and my sister together, and we would read. Um, and then during like my when after polytechnic started working, and I was like, like even though I'm praying more and I'm reading more, I'm not getting that satisfaction, or the doubts are just not coming going away. So it's like, okay, you know what, I I feel like I'm like at this phase you feel like you're alone. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is the part where you really feel like, what the hell is going on with me? What is wrong with me? Um, you don't really talk about this to, and like I didn't really talk about this with my Muslim friends at all. Like this was, I felt scared to talk to them about it because I've there were times where when I was younger, and there would be girls who did wear the hijab and then they took it off, and I was actually one of those people who actually like, why are you taking off the hijab? When it's actually supposed to be, in my family, it's taught that it's mandatory to wear it. Whereas in other like families, it's like, oh, after you get married, you can wear it. So it's like different expectations. So for me, my expectation was that no, you should wear it because it's in the Quran, stuff like this. And so I was that sort of person who will be like, you know what? Yeah, I don't know why she removed it, and but yeah, she did. So, and I was quite a judgmental Muslim. That's what I can tell.
I think all of us are, because we all want to feel like we're doing better than others.
Yeah, right?
It's
And
that race, it's that iman, and it's also, what is that called? Amr bil Maruf,
mm,
where you want to preach to other people
you
to
want
do
them to
good.
do good. Yes, you
Because
want them
because
to.
then you get the rewards, and it was all essentially about you getting the rewards. Like, that's
Yeah,
it. That's why you would tell people, like, you should wear the hijab, or else, like, you're sinning. And then if she wears a hijab, in your head, you're like, I made that change,
I made that
and
reward. Yeah,
I'm
ka-ching, you know.
getting, I'm going to heaven now. I
Oh my god.
I honestly always, for the longest time when I was a child, like, giving charity and stuff, I I guess there were times where it was never about heaven. It was just like, I feel calm and peaceful. And I guess that's how it was easier. I think I was an atheist longer than I was an ex-Muslim because I stopped praying and I was like, "Mwah, I'll be fine." And I just wanted a God to exist so I didn't get killed at night when I was walking. And now I feel more confident because
Mhm.
I know that I'm the one watching over myself. Um,
It's
but yeah,
interesting to see. Yeah, yeah. Because when you said that, I remember like my parents would tell me like, oh, you shouldn't show your skin because my like I will carry your sins. There's this guilt tripping that they do to you. Like
yeah.
yeah, my
There's
God.
there's also there's also like um there's this whole thing into when I was 9 and whatnot, or when I was a child, maybe under 18, when my parents are like, if you commit a sin, I get sinned. Like, sorry, if you commit a sin because you're a kid, you don't get any sins. I get those sins. And I was like, oh, like, okay, that's a good thing, right? Like sometimes the note, and then you're like, oh shit, my mom's blaming me for her distresses. And I've always felt like the concept of hell and heaven have been, um, I guess, abusive to
Yeah,
kids.
yeah, like twisted, to like scare kids to do like whatever the parents want to do, or like
Yeah,
to not express themselves, I would say.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
by the way, guys, Rose has a channel. It's in the description, so please subscribe to her channel.
Thank you, everyone. And
She
yeah,
her Why I Left Islam, sorry to interrupt you. Her Why I Left Islam is a video is amazing. I really like it. It was short, it was honest, um, and that you didn't actually blaspheme. You just said I left and this is why. And I want to see how people react to it because I feel like some people are like, "Oh, you're gonna go to hell." I haven't seen the comments yet. Have you?
I have not really like go to hell comments. There have been quite nice comments actually. A lot of like closeted ex-Muslims,
Hmm.
especially from hello Dr. House, especially from Malaysia actually,
Yeah.
and they're like commenting like, "Oh, you're so brave," and I felt like
Really?
really, yeah, yeah, and I felt so good in my heart because I'm showing them that yes, there are ex-Muslims in Asia, okay,
Yeah.
and when that person started to write, and then there are other ex-Muslims, closeted ex-Muslims, actually replying to that, like, "Hey, where are you at? Hey, where are you at?" Like I'm in Subang, or KL or JB.
Wow.
And I was just like, whoa, amazing.
Oh,
You
I
guys
need
should,
to reply to that thread and go like, guys.
yeah, exactly. So I felt, quite happy that people are actually finding each other, because
Yeah.
I feel that especially in Malaysia, you can't really say that you're an ex-Muslim or you're
Hmm.
closeted and talk about your struggles, because if you do, then people are gonna be like, yeah,
Yeah.
targeting you. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I actually made that video. It took me a long time after I, actually told my family that I want to be an ex-Muslim in order to make that video. Like I felt that actually at the beginning I did not want to create that video because I felt unsafe, and I felt that people are just gonna be labeling me as only an ex-Muslim. So I kind of distanced myself and really had to make uh like I had to have a long space of time to actually think about it and think about the repercussions of, okay, when I'm going to tell or post this on the internet, how will this affect me? Because a lot of things can happen. Even if you don't post it on the internet, if someone, let's say in especially in Britain, from my video as well, the person said, just outing yourself as an ex-Muslim, if the community knows, then you're targeted. So for me, I felt that I needed to make sure that everything that I do will not harm my safety, first of all. And I would say that that's the most important thing
Mhm.
for anyone who's actually thinking of proclaiming and telling people that yes, I'm an ex-Muslim. It's first of all, your safety is important, so make sure that you have that first if you want to do it, I would say.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was like when I came out, I had stopped talking to my family. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do this alone because I don't want people to kill you. Like
Mhm,
that's how scared I was. And we're happy now. We've found that middle ground, and we've found that they live in a safer, like they live in Tanzania. It's not the safest, but it's not like any of the Muslim majority countries. And I think a lot of the people know that my family is still Muslim and we still have a relationship, but I am like the black sheep.
mhm,
And the thing is that with me, they're scared because um, are, a lot of people are basically like coming out and talking to me and questioning even more. It's like a domino effect. So I think there have been so many attempts to just shut me down. And this is why, like, this is why I'm doing the life after Islam, because for one, I want to talk to everybody and anyone. Um, because I want everybody else to go like, look, there's some people like you're possibly the first Malay I have spoken to who's ex-Muslim. I think one or two people in Malaysia have come out because I study there and I have friends there, or they're kind of like, yeah, I don't believe, but I don't need to do my activism. That's why I just want to give the platform to even non-activists, and I'm like, please come and talk. And
mhm,
there are people who are just like you listening to you and want to relate to you, and they want to come out. And it's because a lot of people are scared. That's why I try keeping the story to what you would like to share, um but also because you can be and you are an inspiration to all those people that commented as well. And I feel like we still have a long way to like all of this.
yeah.
And definitely there's a lot at stake in our lives, because we still live in a world where apostasy laws, even if they don't apply to the country, they apply very subtly with our families and the environments around us.
Mhm.
Sorry, you were
I
going
was sitting
into,
something.
yeah, yeah, sorry, you were going into like you being religious
Mhm,
and questioning it even more.
mhm. So I felt that, you know, this is not working out. Going
Hmm.
into the religious side is not working out for me. I don't feel good about this. And I was like, okay. So uh, then I decided to go the other way, essentially, to see what my heart wants, to to explore what exactly that I want. So actually, even before uh, like removing my hijab, I was already kind of going to like gigs, small gigs.
Hmm.
Sometimes there would be events at museums and people would be playing music, and I really enjoy listening
Yeah.
to house music. My God, like, and the DJs is going on, and me and my friends be like, "Yeah, what's up?" So this is something, an experience that really enjoy, and I really like that feeling of freedom. And for me, I felt that was first and foremost the one thing that I felt that I wanted to achieve. And but for me, in terms of when going to this sort of events, I would still be wearing the hijab. So yeah, it wasn't like a problem at all. It's fine. But my parents, my mom especially, she did not really like that I'm going for like to gigs, to places like this. Even though it's like actually a family friendly event, she still did not like it because I'm dancing. That's like the main crux of it. Um, but usually when I do go to such places, I just, oh, I'm going to the museum. I'll be out. I would not really tell her what I'll be doing. And then so after that, I once I felt like, okay, let's go to the other way around. I decided to remove my hijab when I'm going outside to see how it feels like. And to be honest, it was scary. The first time that I did it, it's just terrifying, because I don't know who will see me. It's not terrifying because I'm showing my skin. That's not the thing. It's terrifying that I'm afraid that someone's going to recognize me, and then they're going to tell my parents, and then I'm going to get the repercussions of that. Yeah, so that was the fear. The fear was getting caught, and not the fact that I'm showing my skin, showing my hair.
Yeah.
So that is so the first time that I did that, it was, sneaky. Of course, you wearing the hijab, and then I would go to the mall, remove it, and what I would do, because I was so scared, is that I would wear my bucket hat or wear a cap. So I would like put it really low to cover my eyes, and I'm just like walking kind of suspiciously
Yeah.
to get to my destination and meet my friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to wear a hoodie, yes, in Malaysia at night. I like
Mhm.
I had the hijab on my neck and I used to wear a hoodie. But how did it feel like the first time you went out without hijab? Like what was so different? Were you ready for it?
I would say that I was ready for it, but in my mind, it was more of making sure that no one my parents knew would see me. So
Hmm.
because we have so we live in a HDB flat, public housing. Essentially, 80% of Singaporeans live in such flats, and we would have like Muslim families in different levels of the flat, and so we would know each other, and we were quite close to the family living in the fifth
Hmm.
floor. And so I felt like, okay, when I take the elevator, I need to make sure that no one sees me. So I, will go look around, making sure that no one who I
Hmm.
can recognize sees me. And it was frightening in the sense where everything was quite vivid. You make your eyes are like zooming in on every single thing
Hmm.
to make sure that it's not someone you recognize. And then once you get to the place that you are, a bit more relief comes in, and then you're like, huh, so this is how it feels like to be outside. And for me, it also felt a bit alien because I've been wearing the hijab outside
Hmm.
for a very long time, and then finally, like, I could actually feel the air on my neck. I'm like, what is this? Oh, a new sensation.
Yeah, I mean, to like I removed it a few times. Sometimes I'd always have it around my neck.
Hmm.
And I guess in Australia, because I always wore long sleeves, it was just like, okay, I'm still quite covered. And I didn't know whether you need to tie your hair, put it down. There was a lot of things that I wasn't taught to like style or wear outside the hijab. Everything was including that, like like indoors or around women or inside your hijab. And that's why, like, I feel like a lot of women just feel that it's freeing, but also like getting a taste of freedom. And all I can think of is like somebody who is in a convertible car and standing up and just shouting. That's like how I felt sometimes when I was
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
oh my God, this is my hair flying on the beach in the wind. And I was like, this is real, this is happening.
Yeah, for me, I would say that, that feeling definitely hit me. And but in terms of your experience of being like around women and not knowing how to style, I think that was quite different because I've been like, you know in because in secondary school you did not have
Mhm.
to wear the hijab, and for me it was, in a sense, me going back to that experience. I, understood it's normal, like you should be able to do this.
Mhm.
And so what I would do is that after I would, take off my hijab and stuff it into my bag, I would wear the hat, so it makes me feel like, oh, I'm a bit protected or something, right? But in terms of how to style, I think usually I will also like bring. Yeah, I would go out with a cardigan or like a hoodie or a jacket, and then once I'm out, I would like also put that in my bag. If I wanted to wear like short sleeves, like a t-shirt, and jeans. Usually I would wear jeans outside. So yeah, like I already had like what, I had in mind, like, oh, what sort of outfit do I want to wear this
Mhm.
time, and then make sure that I have all the clothes to fit when I'm coming back home, when I'm putting it
Mhm.
back. Yeah,
Mhm.
and then coming back home. So yeah. That was how it
That
was
was
like.
always a consideration.
Uh-huh.
And then, like, so I guess in the process of leaving and, coming home and like you lived that double life for a bit.
Yeah.
How did you? I saw some bits of your movie when you eventually like created a PowerPoint. Um, I can't believe you did that, but tell us more about that PowerPoint. What did it include? How did your family react? What were
Oh my
they
god.
expecting?
Okay, so essentially when I, well, it wasn't like I, they kind of like had an expectation of like asking me for reasons and stuff like that. They didn't really ask for it, but I felt that I needed to do it for them. So I can remember the day when I actually told my parents that I'm removing my hijab. So they were coming back from a trip, and me and my like family, well, my brother and sister, we were going to pick them up. So I texted my mom. I'm saying to her, and I told her, uh, in Malay, adik tak pakai tudung, which means I won't be wearing the hijab.
Yeah.
And it's just
I
like,
I I just understood I and Tudong.
yeah. And so, and she was like, why? Like, she didn't really ask that much questions. It's just quite weird, but maybe my memory is a bit fuzzy. But yeah, so we went to pick them up, and we went to eat. And my parents were kind of like, hmm. They were like trying not to acknowledge the fact that I'm not wearing a tudung.
I
So
just
they're
wanted
kind of like in
to
denial.
I just wanted to
Mm.
put a super chat up there. Where was it? Oh, um, somebody said you both are doing a lot of good, not only as super inspirers, but by being visible, so other women can draw courage knowing they're not alone. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It means a lot,
It
and
means a lot.
we're hoping because your title is obviously Islam Leaver. We're hoping probably end of this year somebody else uh like you saw like yourself come on to life after Islam because I really and even if you're not willing to show your face, like I'm really curious to see if anybody else wants to come on. We do have a list, but if you have suggestions, this channel is more about stories, not about debates. Most people I've talked to are um, mostly like they're all ex-Muslims, but they're mostly atheists. But I'm curious to hear other people's stories. So yeah, please let us know who you think should come next, or if you'd like to come on. But yeah, sorry, go on. Sorry I interrupted you. I just wanted to make
Oh,
sure
it's
it was
fine.
heard.
Yeah. So, like what Zara said, people from across the country, if you are an ex-Muslim and, come on to the show, it's always good to hear all the different varying opinions and experiences, I would say. And so, as for me, in terms of um, yeah, my when we were eating, they weren't really acknowledging that I removed my hijab. And oh yeah, I remember this. My mom was saying to me, "Okay, at least wear like a hat." She said that, and I was like, "Okay, sure. I mean, out of respect, I'll do that for you." And when I met them, salam them, greeted them. They weren't really acknowledging the fact that I was not wearing a hijab. So I suppose during that time they kind of like trying to deny the fact or try to
Hmm.
like ignore the fact that I'm not wearing a hijab.
Hmm.
So it was more of like not even wanting to realize it, like even if it's in your face, they don't really want to take a look
Yeah.
at it. So I'm like, okay, sure. um and then after a while, I you know because at the time I was also working, and at the job I also usually wear the hijab. And then when I removed it, I did get, like side eyes and stuff like this. But yeah, that was actually one of the experiences that I felt was also scary. Like, what if another Muslim like insults me or like
Hmm.
antagonizes me because I removed my hijab? What am I going to do? What am I going to say? How are they going to react? So these are all my thoughts when
Hmm.
removed it. In terms of friends, my Muslim friends, they did not really talk about it at all. They didn't really ask me about it, which is quite weird, I would say. So there's that. It's more the same thing, like, oh, okay, she's removing it. Okay, like I don't know how to react. Because usually in the societies in Asia, I would say that if, especially in Singapore, I would say that if you are removing your hijab, people don't really know or how to react.
Mhm.
It's not like in a positive way, and if it's in a negative way, they'll be like mostly bring religion into the topic, not like why did you remove it, and then they will spin it and make it more about like, oh, but you're sinning or whatever. So that's how it was for me when I removed my hijab. And then after a while, actually like maybe 2 weeks or so, something like that, I saw like that my parents weren't really talking to me much. So I'm like, okay, this is like very different behavior, because we are actually quite close. And then, so I was like, okay, I need to come out to them that I don't believe in Islam anymore.
Mhm.
Um, because I don't want, because at that time they're still expecting me to pray, they're still expecting me to read the Quran. Whereas in my heart, I'm like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not who I am. I don't want to lie to myself anymore. And then on their part, they would of course try to enforce the rules of pray, read the Quran, all of this. And I'm like, nope, I don't want this. So I came up with a brilliant idea, because I felt like it was just too heavy of a topic to just tell them like, oh, this is the reason why, make it into like some serious thing. Like, for me, my personality is more of like, try to bring in the lightheartedness into this. For,
Mhm.
I mean, it seems selfish, but
Mhm.
I felt that I needed that.
I don't think it's selfish. I think it's a way people cope, and you need your safe spaces and positive energy as well. And also, nobody likes being confronted or in the middle of chaos.
I know. So, so I suppose, yes, humor is my I would say safe space, or how to meet, how to resolve like difficult issues, to make like a heart of it. And in because this is quite a serious issue with my family, I felt like, you know what, let's put in like the serious words in it, but also use fonts that are funny to me, so that when I look at it, I can actually keep track of what I'm saying. So I made a PowerPoint presentation with Comic Sans font, because it's, for me, it's just really funny, because you're talking about a serious,
Mm.
issue, and it's like so ironic that I'm using Comic Sans, right? Oh,
Oh,
so
like that you thought about it.
yeah, so I was like, how do I make this like funny for myself, like and so I did that, and the points that I put out was essentially that I wasn't really focusing on like the theological side of it, like, oh, uh, you know, Aisha was with Muhammad when she was 9 and all, and I wasn't going to get into that, because that's like a whole entire can of worms.
Mhm.
So for me, I felt what was really important was the the fact that as a woman, you don't get a lot of rights, in terms of like inheritance, or in terms of if you want to get married, you need to have a wali to represent you, instead of you representing yourself. um and for what's that called, um like if you want to essentially go to court, you need to have like four witnesses for women, whereas for men, he can represent himself. Like for me, that is extremely unfair, especially if it's in terms of law. Why is it this way? Whereas for it's just, to me, it's just not fair at all for women. So for me, that was quite an important point. So I added that in. Um, And I also added in that it's against a lot of I would say different people. For example, homosexuals. Why is it that they are sinners? Why is it wrong to be a homosexual?
Mhm.
And so this were also part of my presentation. um in terms of like practicing the religion, I don't think I added that in, because
Mm.
if I felt that if I added that in, it would be like insulting to them, because they practice and they want me to practice. So I felt like I should not touch that on that topic, even though I felt that it's not something that I care for. um and yeah, I for some reason I can't really remember the other parts that I added in. I think it was just too much that my mind is just like trying to get away from it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And how did your family react after
yeah.
that?
So during my presentation, like yeah, my brother wasn't a part of it because I think he was working or something. But me, my sister, I got my sister, my mom, and my dad together. It was after Margaret, I remember, and so I was showing them this presentation, and my mom started crying, and then that in turn made me cry because I can't stand that. But my dad was silent, like he was sitting on a
Mhm.
chair. It's like away from us. We were on like the bed, and I was explaining to them. My sister did not say anything at all. I'm not sure if she cried or not, because I was just really focusing on trying to like get this presentation done, and to 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 try to console my mom. uh so yeah, so me and I would say that the family cried, because I
Yeah.
understand that it's very difficult for them,
Yeah.
and that all the expectations that they had for me is broken, right? So I felt that, you know of course, at the point I felt that I was the cause of this, right? That I was the cause of me breaking up my family, which is not something I really want to do at all. So I would say that I cried because I felt bad that I had to do this to them. But I also understood that if I don't do this, then I would not be able to live my full life. Um, and I took that into consideration, that this is something that I have to do, and I should not run away from it. This might not be the right cause for anyone else. It's my personal thoughts, my feelings. That's why I had to do it. It's something that I personally had to strive for, and I did it, and it was painful. It was heartbreaking. It still is, but I would say that I don't regret it. It's really I felt that after that, even though they did ice me out, did literally my family didn't really talk to me for like a few months, even though we're living in the same roof, under the same roof. I felt, yeah, I did the right thing for myself, and
Was it I usually get this question, and a lot of young ex-Muslims always ask because they're so scared of hurting their parents. We all were. Was it worth it?
I would say that yes. I would say that for me, it definitely is worth it. Even till today. Uh, Even though you get the repercussions of maybe years of not even repairing that relationship. I would say that for me, it's a two-way thing. If you want to repair something but the other party don't want to, it's difficult. It's a relationship. You shouldn't base your relationship on, oh, for this is for myself, where I would say that if someone is um an an ex-Muslim, and your family is a Muslim, I feel that there shouldn't be any, oh, you're not part of us anymore because you're not a Muslim. It should be something, relationship should be based on the real interactions you have with them, with each other,
Not
instead
the
of, oh,
beliefs.
yeah, exactly. So this is how I really felt. And I felt that even before I actually told my parents, I felt that if they are unable to accept me as a person, then what does that say about them? And what does that say about their religion? You know?
Exactly.
So I feel that I think at that point when I understood my parents' points of view, then I'm like, yeah, this is why I left Islam. Like it's very clear to me,
Yeah.
like this non-inclusivity. So
Yeah. I just wanted to post a positive message, and I was going to add to your point about like I've always said this, that if you think that religion is more important than your child, then you don't deserve a child, or you don't deserve a sibling, because if our family's love is based on conditions such as belief, then we were never family to begin with. We were never loved to begin with. Like if you think that you can treat other people that way, because it's hard. It's hard. It's hard for somebody who is being shunned, and I understand that parents take it upon themselves to, I guess, blame themselves and say, "Hey, you know what? Um, we were wrong in our upbringing, like we're wrong in like bringing up our child, and this is why she's an ex-Muslim. It's something we have done. It's like my parents said, it's because we sent her overseas or we gave her too much freedom. But the thing is that being on the other side and being alone is harder, and I still have that with my family, and we have somewhat of a good relationship. We make it work, but you know um we still, I guess, we still have that difference. We still have that isolation. And um we have Sarah. She wanted to send this message. um I really like, almost every podcast I've had for this, it's been the fourth one. I've always had tears and nobody has seen because I have my hair, and I'm like, yes, I'm just gonna, and I always cry because I feel like it was one of those reasons that I opened Faithless Hijabi, because I wanted to talk to people, because I wanted people to connect with.
mhm,
And this was something that connected us because it was all of our lives. We've been brought up like that. 90% of our living so far has been us living that.
yeah,
And a lot of people, even if they come from other religions and whatnot, have faces, but it's so much harder when um, I guess your whole worldview is shattered. And it's not like, even Muslims who are liberal would also not, like, they also don't let ex-Muslims talk, but because their worldview is also being shattered in a way, even if
mhm,
they don't practice. um yeah, no, it's really nice to, I guess, let it out as well. So
yeah.
I'm
I
really
feel
glad that you shared with us. It feels
uh,
good, but it also feels, I don't know, go on. What does it feel for you?
for me, I feel that because I'm not really surrounded by ex-Muslims anyway, it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to you know like have that connection unless
Yeah.
you're on the internet and you're like actually trying to find someone who's
Yeah.
similar to you and has had similar experiences. It's like, oh, finally, I'm finding you, and you're like trying to
It's like
but
looking at a mirror as well, and you're like, "Oh, you had that? I had that too." And it's honestly how I found out about ex-Muslims, when I heard Ayan Hirsi Ali and I heard Sarah Haider, and I was like, "Oh my God, you're
Mhm,
saying part of my stories. What
mhm.
is this? Who are you?" Um, oh, somebody just gave a super chat to us, and that's so nice. Thank you. Um, I've never used super chats before, but thank you so much.
Thank you, introverted smiles.
so, so yeah, no, it's so nice. Like, I don't know, like I'm in tears right now. So if you, like, I know this hurts you, and what, like, it's like you have this distance relationship with your family. Um, I guess my question was, what is next for you? Like, where do you see yourself going? Would you like to have a relationship? For, I guess, would you like to have a relationship with your family?
Definitely. Like I feel that it's quite important to me.
Mhm.
Honestly, like you know to have a relationship with your family, because you grew up with them.
Yeah.
You have had that connection with them. You've gone to essentially a lot of different, for me, we travel
Mhm.
to Malaysia and Singapore, and for me, I have always been very close with my parents, because when I was younger, my siblings were already older, so they didn't
Mhm.
really care to go out with my parents. So I'll be like, because I'm the last child, so I'll be like, yeah, let's go for an adventure, let's go on the bus and go like around Singapore and explore different areas. And we would go for long ass walks, like 5 kilometers, stuff like this, and we just explore all the different crevices of Singapore.
Mhm.
And this to me was very strong in my childhood and also in my teenage years. Um, and But if I can, I'm gonna speak honestly, is that the thing that I felt was missing in my family life, or I would say in actually a lot of Asian families, I would say that the communication of real issues.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I had my therapy session right before this, and I said it's really hard for me to talk to my family about intellectual anything in depth because we just it's such a shallow relation, like, oh, this is what I did, this is what happened at work, this is, and I'm like, one, English, like my family speaks English, but we mainly speak Gujarati, and my
Hmm.
Gujarati and Swahili is broken, so my dad is mostly Swahili. But at the same time, like even if I spoke in English, it's just so hard to have that conversation around anything. It could just be feminism. It could just be, this is my right to live. Why can't you understand it? It's not even Islamic as well. It's just you it's such an issue because I've never had my dad ever come to me and ask me, so what have you thought about your career choices? How is that going to impact you? And I'm sure their dads like that, but I have found this common theme where, like, I just think we were raised like we were raised so differently. It's so hard. It's so hard to imagine having that conversation with your family about, like, especially now that you've encompassed different ideas and values, and you want to go like, Mom, this is what I found out at work, and you're like, oh, you're not interested. I posted stuff about racism today because I felt my part of taking part in the protest is starting by home.
Hmm.
I was like, I want to talk to my family about how racist they are or
Hmm.
have been, or how we've been subjected to racism, but also like, I want to turn those tables there. I want to understand, can we get there? So I was
Hmm.
like, so I wrote this long thing and I wrote it in simple English, and I said, I gave them examples that were relating to them. So not something like what happened in the US, or how social just like, social services are not given or they're not justified like in the US. But it was just like, you guys do this at home, and maybe the next time you can do that. Or I'm hoping at least that this starts a journey that you can get that. And nobody responded, and I'm like, I'm so heartbroken because I'm really trying. I'm really, really trying to like do my part, which to me is, it starts from home.
Hmm. I agree. It's really interesting that we have similar experiences in terms of family. Like, I don't know if this is the same for like other ex-Muslims or not. Um.
I think Sarah Hayder said that she was able to converse with her dad about it.
Hmm.
See, I know that. See, my family don't even know apostasy laws exist. They think they're wrong, but they don't even know that you can kill them. So if I came up with even a justification about hijab, I know that they would understand me if they spoke to me about it. If they don't come on my side, if they don't agree with me, at least they would be able to see me eye to eye, and they're like, oh, okay, these are your values.
Hmm.
But I think other people have been successful into talking to their families. But I think for the large part, we weren't allowed to critically think or discuss it, were we? Because then we would have not been Muslims. Then they wouldn't have been Muslims.
Hmm.
It's a lot of brainwashing. How is it for you? I guess it was similar then.
Yeah, I would say that in terms of like Islam, I don't really talk much about like, oh, why is this that way or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was something that I was like thinking about, but I didn't
Yeah.
try to talk to them about it because I know what they're gonna say because I've seen what they have said to others. So I kind
As
of
a
understand like
go-to
that.
scholar.
Yeah, so I understand like their culture, as in like their expectations of what
Yeah.
I know what they're gonna say, so I'm not gonna say this.
Yeah.
Like let the first person say it, and I'm like, okay, well, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
So for me, yeah, it was we there wasn't really a lot of communication about like important issues, or I just did not feel like the way that they communicate with my older siblings had that level of communication between them. So I always felt like, why, like, since they're not talking about that with my older siblings,
Yeah.
then I feel personally, I've just felt like I just shouldn't talk about it
Yeah.
to them. So that was how it was like, and even actually now, even when I have like the family group, when I do send them like articles about, oh, what's happening in Singapore, like anything in terms of like racial issues or social issues,
Mhm.
there's not really much input from them. Like they don't talk to me about their opinions at all, even if I do send them an article about it. So I'm just like, okay, so I'm just like, yeah,
Did
yeah,
they
and this,
read it? Do you think they ignore it?
I don't know. So even before, like, I left, or told them about, that I wanted to leave, and or remove my hijab, I would sometimes like send them articles, but they don't respond, or they don't even like they'll just talk about something else, and I'm just like, okay. So this is like a signal to me that they're not really interested in it, and I was just like, okay, so I can't express my thoughts about this, because they're not gonna have an active conversation with me. So for me, I feel that I would prefer that people are actually like interested in it before I
Hmm.
can actually talk about it, because that's, I don't know, it's like my personality. um and even after I left, I would be, sometimes sending in articles, and no response at all. So I'm just like, okay. mm, I, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know what I can do to get a response. I can't be demanding.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did you call them for Eid? Because you said this Eid was quite emotional for you. Was this your first Eid away from them? Or was
Mm,
this because it was lockdown and
I haven't been back to Singapore for like 2 years, so I
okay.
haven't seen them for like 2 years. For my parents, in terms of calling them for Eid, it was more of like, oh, I would wish them, Selamat Hari
On the
Raya
con
and stuff. Yeah, on the chats. And but this year, I wanted to specifically talk to my like parents, one by one, but I did not call because I before this, I remember I will usually ask, can I call? And then
Mhm.
they would say yes or no. But usually the answer is no, or usually they're busy. So I'm like, okay, then it means that they don't want to talk to me on the phone.
Mhm.
Or sometimes I will actually like call them and they will not pick up. So I was like, okay, I get the message, you don't want to talk to me. Okay. So for my dad, I said, some Raya, hope everything is fine there, because it's during the lockdown,
Mhm.
um, and Singapore was having their circuit breaker situation, so everything was kind of like, and my dad, uh, because I saw in the chats that he had to go to the hospital, so I was quite concerned. I was like keeping up with all the news that was coming in. And then during Eid, I asked him like, because he would by then he was already discharged, and I asked him, how are you? What did the doctor say? Because he didn't really post it on the group, so I'm like, okay. So I asked him about it. He sent me like a photo of like what the doctor said, and um so I asked a bit more, and then he said that he has to take care of what he's eating, and I just told him like, yeah, please make sure you do that. And then I asked a few more questions, and then he didn't really reply afterwards. He just told me to like take care. Then I'm just like, okay. And then for my mom, I also texted her and saying Selamat Hari Raya, for I hope everyone stays safe, and that everyone is healthy.
Mhm.
Make sure to wear your mask if you're going
Mhm.
outside, stuff like this. And she said, oh, thanks. And then I tried to ask more questions, like, oh, now that uh, my dad has needs to take care of his diet, and I understand, from what I can remember, we usually eat the things that he's not supposed to. So I was telling him, oh, I was asking her like, oh, how are you? Like, what are you cooking for Raya, and how are you going to, set out the diet for my dad? Like, what are you gonna cook? Since there's like a lot of things that he can't eat. And then she said like, oh, don't worry, I can manage. And I'm like, I said, I know that you can manage. You're a strong woman. I understand that you can manage it, but how, are you going to do it? Just to understand a bit more. And then she said, don't worry about me. I have another daughter and a son with me. So
Wow.
yeah, so
That's
when I got that message, I was like, oh, it's equivalent to a slap to my face. That's how I felt. Yeah, it's essentially, to me, I felt like she's saying, I have two other kids. Who are you? That's how I felt. That's how I interpret her
yeah.
message. So I was just like, "Hmm." Then I was like, say and so I said, yes, I'm grateful that they can take care of you. Um, and then then after that, I added on another message saying, don't forget the words that you told me, which was, I'm still your daughter. And she said that to me when I was essentially like removing my hijab. She said to me, like, oh, don't worry, you're still my daughter. We can find an ustaz, and you can talk to him about
Okay.
your doubts and stuff like this. And yeah, so I definitely remember that she's saying that to me, while also adding on to the fact that, yeah, you can remove your doubts by going to a religious leader. So because for me, I felt like that was quite guilt tripping, right? Like trying to persuade you, or persuade me, because I'm her daughter, so I should do this because I'm her daughter, right?
Mhm.
And I definitely remember those words. So I was like, yeah, you know, remember what you said, that I'm still your daughter. But and then she just ended the conversation. I didn't get a reply. So yeah.
I'm sorry you had to go through your parents telling you, "Hey, you're
Yeah,
not that
it's
important," in another way.
it's difficult.
Yeah, I think like this is how I've always liked to see, and it was basically my brother who made me realize it. He's like, they love you, they just don't know how to connect with you the same way you don't know how to connect with them.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe just maintaining a shallow relationship is what you need, some with boundaries. And anytime a controversial topic is brought up, it doesn't even have to be religion. We're like, okay, we're not talking about it. I'm like, ah, really? Like, why?
Mhm. Mhm.
We have a few questions. I
Okay.
know we've been over time, so I am going to go all back up. There have been a lot of people saying they're from Malaysia and they respect us. Um, um, this was one of them. So I read on the website that Malaysia, I guess, that want apostates to have to learn Islam again. I think this is very common with a lot of ex-Muslims who actually do come out. I don't know if that is a requirement, but a lot of dawah places have basically put in more of their efforts in educating the ones who are in doubt versus inviting new people. Have you seen that change, Rose?
Like, so just to clarify, it's when a person is already in doubt, so they went to they go to like a center to relearn Islam, and in order to get those doubts like removed or corrected.
Yeah, yeah, it could be that, or I think the point was that in Malaysia, if you're an apostate, or if you ever declare it, they're going to enforce you to go to madrasa again or Islamic classes. I don't know if that's true though. I think that was just a comment made.
I'm not sure if that's true, but I would say that it's there is definitely a cultural, or I would say family enforcement, that if
Hmm.
you are having doubts and you are actually coming out with your family, or they will tell you to go to a religious leader or
Hmm.
to religious classes to learn deeply on the religion. So yeah, I mean yeah.
Yeah, this was with regards to a apostate prophet who does Turkish videos now. Now, I don't actually speak any other language fluently except for English, but have you ever thought about doing a content in Malay or
I would say my Malay is to shit right now. Yeah, I'm having like, because I was talking to my best friend on the phone, and we
yeah.
were trying to speak another language other than English, because I felt like I needed to talk my native language. I needed to keep that
Hmm.
strong. So it's still it, and I was just like, trying to figure out like, oh, what is the word for this? What is the word for that? So I can say that
Yeah,
if I want to do this, I need to sort out my
Malay.
Malay language. Sorry,
I
guys.
I have that in I guess I have that for Gujarati and Swahili as well.
Mhm.
Um, but then I end up picking up new languages. So, how do you deal with situations being recognized in public as you both are now familiar faces?
I think this would be more applicable to you, Zara, because you do talk to like the Muslim community in Britain.
I try to stay away, but I've had somebody randomly in Norway. I was on holiday at not at a live event. Like it wasn't even a big event. They were like it was a small knit community. Me and my boyfriend, somebody came to me and she was a Somali girl. She's like, "Are you Zara?" And I'm like, "Yes." And she's like, "I'm so excited to see you." And I was like, "Oh my God." Like I was just like, "This is happening." Like I'm in the middle of nowhere. A lot of them have been ex-Muslims or those who support ex-Muslims. There was one Muslim who met me in a bar. I was there, and I basically, this is horrible, but what I did was he came to me and he's like, "Are you Sarah?" And I'm like, "Are you gonna kill me?" Because I was genuinely scared. This was around the time where people had and were actively trying to find where I lived. And he was like, "No, no, no, I'm a Muslim." And, he was really nice. Like, I don't always have to agree with what you say, but I definitely don't think that the way ex Muslims are being treated is right. So that was really nice. I think I usually just try being very neutral and not discussing things. I'm
Mhm,
just like,
mhm.
I want to, like, it's also uncomfortable and like overwhelming for the other person as well. Because I've only started this YouTube channel. My idea was never to put my face out there, but it felt like Faithless Hijabi would be more standing if there was a familiar face running with it.
Mhm.
And I will be starting to recruit volunteers for Faithless Hijabi. So if people want to join, and that includes you, it's not a lot of work right now, but hopefully moving forward, we want to keep all our social media active. So if somebody is interested, please write to me on social media. I'm gonna try finding more questions. Blah blah. Yeah, yeah. Um, there are many people saying they're proud of you. So I'm just gonna put that comment.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah. Am I saying that right?
Uh, yes, Soraya. So yeah. So have you also have support from and contact with that? Um, Just curious to know how well you're getting organized. I have been doing this as a one woman show for a while. So I manage all the social media accounts, the website design, and everything. This is why I'm looking for more people to help me with little bits, and that could be just sending emails out or um, writing blogs. Um, Okay. Did you so you know how we talked about ex-Muslims have this connection and we basically we have a lot in common, especially when we leave and you're like, this is my story. Did you feel like that with other ex-religious people or other atheists?
In terms of like similar experiences, so far not really, because I tend not to like talk
Yeah.
about my me living Islam when I'm meeting new people.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of from what I've heard, um, for like I think Christian, like really religious Christian families, they do have similar experiences from what I understand and from what
Mm.
I've watched as well. Um, because they are quite enforced in a way. But in terms of like the experiences of or talking about the theoretical ideas of like, do you think this is right or do you think this is wrong, you have like similarity of you have a similar viewpoint, I would say. So
Mhm.
not really more of the experience. I've never met anyone with a similar background in terms of other religions, of living other religions.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's something that I tend not to talk to people about. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's understandable. Like with me, it's all like, I'm ex-Muslim, come meet me. Or just like when like I don't know, sometimes I try not to. But then every time social media comes up and I'm like, "Oh, I really don't want to talk about this shit." But, I've learned better to, like, now, not talk about it. I
Hmm.
remember when my boyfriend introduced me to his friends, I was like, "Oh, she's an activist." And I'm like, I'm also, like, Tanzanian. I'm also, like I'm also from Australia. There's so many other things and ways you can introduce me to." But I
Hmm.
was like, "Cool."
Hmm.
Which is what I had to tell him, "Can you please not do it?"
Actually,
Uh,
recently it's like I've never really like told people that I'm ex-Muslim and stuff,
mhm.
but after I released that video, I actually started to like
Embrace it
yeah,
or
to
like
embrace it. Yeah, because I felt that it's something that people should know about, especially if
mhm.
they're non-Muslims. They need to know like this is actually
We
happening.
exist. This
Yeah,
is
we
happening.
exist. Yeah.
Exactly. So I actually play a game on Android and it's called Brawl Stars, and my name in there was just Zara K. And then I realized there was a lot of Muslim names. So there was like, like Abdullah and Asma and so much. And I'm like, you know what I put? I changed my name to ex-Muslim Zara K. And I was like, and it's kind of funny as well because it's a video game, but I'm like, I think this might just piques people's curiosity, or
Hmm.
maybe people will know that I am normal and I play video games as well.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I guess just before we wrap it up, I have a final question that I've asked everyone. What would you tell a younger version of yourself or to the younger audience? What is one piece of advice, be it for ex-Muslims, for other women or other younger people? What would you tell them?
This is not coming from me. It's more like an advice that someone gave to me when I um during my me coming out and asking like, hey, what do you think of this? She's a non-Muslim and she's really open. um she's a colleague of mine back then, and when she heard my story, she said this to me, and it's something that can still remember. It's something that still struck my chords, I would say. And it is, living life to your own morals and how you truly want to is the biggest challenge of anything that anyone could ever go through. So
Mhm.
yeah. That is, I would say that if you can do that, props to you, man. It's a huge endeavor to take on, I would say.
Yeah. I guess that's always what I've told people as well. Um,
But do it smartly.
yeah. Um, yeah. Oh, somebody asked where, sorry, I just saw this because it's a chat. Somebody asked where were you staying and if you had mentioned that. Um, so I guess I wanted to know what part of the world are you in right now? Are you still in Singapore? Have you,
Mm, mhm. So currently I am in Europe.
yeah,
Uh, yeah,
okay.
but I was in Singapore and Asia, and then now I'm in Europe. So yeah.
And are you liking that, not being around a lot of Muslims? I mean, Europe does have a fair bit of Muslim, but are you liking that different scenario? Because your description says that you're an avid traveler. So,
For me, I enjoy it because even if they are Muslims, they have varying degrees of opinions. So, for
mhm,
example, I was at a social event recently, and I met this guy. He is Egyptian,
mhm,
and so we were talking about like my like why I left and stuff. And also, so he is a Muslim, but
mhm,
he doesn't really practice. So
mhm,
I get to understand that, oh, even in Egypt you have people like this. Because for
yeah,
me, in terms of the Middle Eastern region, I've always, from my younger days and from what media and also my parents have told me, that they have a lot of rules
mhm,
that has to do with covering up and all of this. It's strict there. So when I travel a lot and I get to see, oh yeah, even though the laws and the governments are like this, the people are different.
mhm,
So I get to see that different side. And for him, he said that, yeah, I mean, I'm liberal, but I wouldn't leave Islam because, for him, he doesn't want to do that to his family. I'm like, yeah, of course, I understand it. It's
mhm,
I would say, depending on the family, then in hurting them is inevitable. But for him, from what I understood from his story, is that he has tried to bring up like certain topics, but then the parents would be like, "Oh, no, 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 no! Why are you even thinking about this?" Like trying to get away from such topics.
yeah,
So he understood from that signal that,
mhm.
oh, I shouldn't be talking about this. So
Yeah, and I guess for a lot of people, like especially because he's living overseas as well, um, religion is possibly not a big part of their life. Because for the longest time, I put it away because I was living overseas, and I was like, oh well, nobody's forcing me here. I'll do what I want to. So I never really thought about it until I was put in a position where I had to defend gay marriage, and I was like, and everybody was just all the Muslims were just so horrible about it. They were
mhm.
just so mean about it. Like not like very little people are like lit and live and let live. The Quran says they're gonna go to hell, but why should I interfere? And I'm like at the same time I'm like, you're okay with that? I wasn't even declaring ex-Muslim, but I was like, you're okay with people just going to hell for loving others? So I guess in a way it was just like, oh, this is a big part of who I am and a big part of changes that I want to make, and you're not stopping me. And since then, there were like, especially coming from my community, there were a lot of girls who then reached out because I've mentioned this before. Like I was spoken about in the madrasas. I'm not even kidding. They're like, don't become like Zara Kit. She's misguided. She's being an Israeli agent, whatnot.
Oh my God, you got that too. Like, oh my, like
Full of
the
them.
number of times where there's, especially actually in Malaysia they do this. So there will be like advertisements for charities,
Hmm.
for like because they have the conflict going on for
Hmm.
Palestine and Israel. So they would have like these advertisements in Malaysia where they would use like really sad music, and they would like talk about the Jews, being this and that and everything. And I was just like, wow, okay. So I grew up with that sort of environment, thinking like Jews are,
Anti-Semitism.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, like, are like bad. Jews are bad people. They are evil, and this is like widespread in Malaysia. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it is. Like I grew up like that as well. Like my dad just like a few weeks ago, he's like, "Why don't you talk about Israel?" And I'm like, one, I know it's not black and white, it's not all Israelis, but at the
Yeah.
same time, why is that something you had to bring up? Um, I guess just before we end it, so when you met a Jew, what were your feelings? Even after you had left Islam or while?
Mm, I was like, oh, cool. My first Jew. What's up? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was after I left. In Singapore, you don't really actually get to meet a lot of Jews,
Mm-hmm.
or in my case,
In
you're not really
Malaysia, they can't enter.
exactly. So you don't really get that contact with them.
Mm-hmm.
So when I met my first Jewish person, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what's up? I was fine with it. Like it's not a problem because by then I was already like understanding like
Mm-hmm.
this is the message that this particular group of people are talking about, but they are completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they I would say in terms of history they've had a hard time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
this is what I can say about them. But yeah, it's a very difficult topic actually
Yeah.
to go into. So let's not.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it is, yeah. We should definitely have you again in a few months and it'd be nice to hear how people have progressed in their journey.
Mhm.
Um, I guess with that, thank you everyone, and please follow Rose on Twitter and YouTube. It's Fatally Honest.
Mhm.
Are you on Facebook?
uh, I am not on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, so please give her YouTube channel a follow. I love her Why I Left Islam video, which is trending now. So yeah, the link is in the description for her channel, and you should be able to find her video from that. Um,
Thank you everyone
I
for this.
yeah. She does not live in Scandinavia.
I've been there though. I was there for like 6 months in
Oh, okay.
Sweden. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it was actually it was pretty nice. A lot of varying people actually because of immigration stuff, but
yeah,
definitely enjoyable country, I would say.
yeah.
Hmm.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everybody for seeing. We have our next one on, I think, Tuesday. Yes, we have somebody from Saudi Arabia on Tuesday.
Mm.
So please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'm gonna put snippets of this clip on Twitter and Instagram and link this talk. Thank you.
Thank you everyone
Bye.
who has joined. Bye.
Okay, that's just about to end.
I was like, are we still
Circle.
live?
It's still just circling. It's still circling. So, oh, it's happening. Oh,
Technical
okay.
issues.
Okay. It's okay, it still hasn't ended.
Anyway, thank you everyone who was in the chat. I couldn't see the chat because I was in StreamYard. So
Yeah. Oh,
I'll go
can
through
you
it anyway.
not see the chat?
Not in StreamYard. Oh, I think it was because I was on private chat. Oops, sorry guys.
Oh,
But yeah, I'll look through it anyway.
uh,
To see all of your
it's
lovely
still
comments.
going. It's not letting me end. it's not it's not letting me end this. My internet's fine because
Oh
this is
my
still.
gosh.
Oh well, now we know.
Let it
Um,
circle. It is saving. Oh, okay.
I guess we should have ended it yesterday because it would still record for the whole day. Um,
Kim Sarang. Yeah. I'm just reading through all of this. Rose, good to know that you live
oh,
in
we do
Sweden.
need a musical. And it's okay. Hang on, I'm just gonna restart. My internet really does not like me today. Wow, okay. I can't believe it's still streaming. Maybe my Chrome has an issue.
I don't know. Hopefully it saves though. Huh. Someone has left the chat and I am now alone. Let me see. Hi everyone. So how it's been? I'm taking over. Well, she'll be back, I think. But yeah, apparently it is still running. So let me see your lovely comments right now. Uh, let's see if there are any questions that I've missed. So far, not really. Hard decision, yep. I really like that all of you are actually talking to each other. It's a really good way to actually make the community. So yeah, let's see. People or other Muslim regions, they often don't speak English, and for them, it's difficult to hear all those valuable conversations and messages you have. Mhm. I think it would be really interesting to see an ex-Muslim from like East Asia. That would be a very interesting topic or person to talk to actually. So if you know anyone who's actually from East Asia and who was a Muslim, feel free to direct them to Zara so that they can actually get in touch if they actually have a story that they want to tell. So yeah. Let me see what's up and if I can chat with Zara. Hey, is everything okay? Anyway, if you guys have any more questions, you can go ahead and ask me. Rose, I am from India. Okay, always ask every guest here, have they ever been to India? Have you? I have not. Unfortunately, I would love to. It's a huge country, so there's a lot of areas to cover. Um, I would actually more I would like to go to Nepal mostly because of the mountains. But yeah, right now there's conflicts between India and China, so not really a good time to go there. But I will definitely want to go there. Actually, if you are from South India, I really miss the food from there. In Singapore, you can get like roti paratha, the roti, and you can get thosai. I'm not sure if it's a South Indian cuisine, honestly. I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong. Berapa umurku saat meninggalkan Islam? So essentially, this is asking at what age did you leave Islam? I left at the age of 21. Yeah, 21. That's when I left. So close. Is Rose your real name? It is my stage name, I would say. You need to keep yourself safe by using names that you believe will keep you safe. As in, the internet is not a safe place to be, if I can be honest with you. You go to court, Rose, before Islam. You mean to legally denounce the religion? Not yet. This is something that I've yet to do, and I was looking at the Singaporean Council of Ex-Muslims to find out more about it. So if you are Singaporean and if you are an ex-Muslim, that is actually a Facebook page that is useful for you. I've not.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, you're back.
You're back. Oh my god, my laptop just stopped working. So I'm just going to end this broadcast. I'm sorry to keep you all waiting.
It's okay.
It's
I was
okay.
kind of
I was kind of That's
Interactive.
I'm glad you kept them entertained. I'm sorry. I guess I'll have to edit this. But yeah, thank you all so much. Bye.
Bye.
Let's see if it ends
Bye, guys.
this time.